Hi, everyone. Welcome to Devshop San Francisco. I want to introduce our first speakers. They're going to be speaking about BDD using Meteor and Cucumber. Our speakers are Sam Hatoum and John James. Sam is the founder of Zolvier, a testing and automation consultancy, and has been working on testing in Meteor for over 2 years. He's a core Velocity team member, the author of the Meteor testing manual, and the creator of the Meteor Cucumber testing framework. John is going to be joining Sam. John's the CTO of 3Ring, a venture-backed education startup. He spearheaded their transition from Rails to Meteor last year, migrating almost 1 million users. He's also a core organizer of the Meteor NYC meetup and the author of several Meteor packages. Please welcome John and Sam.
All right, hello. So I've been doing Agile for about 11 years now. I set up my consultancy to help companies deliver software faster through automation and consulting.
Yeah, so as was said, I'm the CTO at a startup called 3Ring. We are like a real-time evidence-based learning platform, work in enterprise, and we have about 1.6 million user-uploaded posts in the app right now, and we're running on Meteor. So anyway, yeah, Sam and I were out drinking after the dev shop a few months ago, and he told me I should try his Reactive BDD framework. And I hit him up about a month later and told him that I had pretty much my entire team doing BDD. And so we decided we'd join forces today and show you guys how this is possible. And it's actually pretty easy with Meteor now.
So you've identified a problem and you've got a good solution for it. BDD can help you in all these ways. In this particular talk, we're going to be focusing on how to communicate effectively using BDD and how it helps you deliver higher quality faster.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how big your team is. You can start using BDD right away. It's quick to get into, and we're going to show you how in a second, but thanks to Sam and Zolvier's work, Meteor developers can get into it pretty much faster than anyone else.
Does this diagram look familiar to anyone?
Yeah, so who out there has built something for a project over like hours, days, or even weeks, just to turn it in and find out it was completely wrong?
So it turns out this problem has actually existed since the 60s. Could it be that we've not learned much in the last 40 years? And so the crux of this problem is actually ineffective communication.
So we encountered this exact problem at 3Ring as we scaled to the point where pretty much everybody who was concerned with product was unable to keep track of everything that was actually going on in product development. Engineering was getting hit from all directions, bug reports, feature requests, random scribbles and chats. And people started giving me dirty looks when I told them to look at Jira to figure out where we were. So I started thinking of ways to manage our interactions with the rest of the team. And yeah, so BDD was great for that.
And this is where BDD comes in because, so Dan North came up with it. He's a guy from England, where this accent is from. And he wanted to bridge the gap between technology and business. And so he defines it as BDD is about implementing an application by describing its behavior from the perspective of its stakeholders. So if you take the stakeholder perspective, create some behavior definition, then you use that behavior definition to drive the development, hence the term behavior-driven development.
Yeah, so the key is to have really clearly defined behavior, and that's actually not as easy as it sounds because typically everybody involved comes from a different background and speaks a different language and has different concerns driving them.
So one way to get a good understanding between everyone is to use examples. For example, let's say John is a business guy and he says,
yeah, I want you to build me a homing portal.
It's a homing portal.
I don't know.
Can you give me an example?
No, I can't.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, actually it's it's when a registered user signs in and they see like a welcome page.
Ah, that's a homing portal. Okay, well, now we have a kind of understanding. He's used an example. So we can take this example and use this to define the behavior. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use this scenario here, a homing portal, and we're going to say, given the user has registered, when they sign in, then they see a welcome screen. Notice the given, when, then scenario. The given, when, and then are deceptively useful. They give you the preconditions, the action that has to happen, and the thing that you can assert on after. And you don't have to be a developer to understand this. Anyone from the business can see this and go, oh, yeah, I know what that means.
Yeah, so now that everybody's speaking the same language, you can deep dive into the details of what you're trying to work on. And you can kind of go into every possible like option or scenario that it would be used in. and lay that out. And that's, if you're a naturally inquisitive person or like a detail-loving engineer, then it's like a really fun part of BDD. It gives you a platform to sort things out faster and like keep track of your findings better.
And really bug the business. So this is actually a great way to create a shared understanding between everyone. It's using these examples. Now, there's more to the communication problem than just getting a shared understanding. There is also...
Yeah, so one thing that I noticed at 3Ring was ideas about the product were scattered across emails, Slack, drawings, text messages. Each team working on the product had the overhead of translating it into something actionable for themselves.
And so when you use examples as the common language, you can now have one place where you put all these examples. So if you have a bunch of definitions of the behavior, they can all live in one place and everyone can use them as reference. And this leads to the elusive single source of truth that you might hear in some circles, especially the agile ones. Now we're going to show you how to put this theory into practice. So how do you go from an idea to a delivered using BDD? On the left, you have an idea, and on the right, you have money. And there's someone who's going to do a talk shortly that's going to tell you all about making money. And this is how 3Ring did it.
Yeah, so pretty much everything ever built started with an idea. So let's take 3Ring's idea, which is what if teachers could upload and share student learning experiences. And it's a pretty good idea. We really need to turn it into something more useful, though, to actually build it. And a good way to add extra context is the story format. So as a stakeholder, I want some feature so that I can have some benefit. And the best part of that format is it forces you to acknowledge the benefit that your idea brings to the target user. So for 3Ring, here's what we did. As a teacher, I want to upload student work and performances so that I can demonstrate student growth. And with this, we have a really clear idea of the who, the what, and the why.
Now, when I'm consulting with clients, I tell them that they can use this story context, which gives them really good information, to create a design or a wireframe or a mock-up. From this, create a higher fidelity design and keep communicating this until you get a really clear picture of what you're trying to do. Then take one slice of what you're doing, one really useful slice, and then create a scenario from that slice.
Yeah, so our slice is, for this, would be like a progress bar. Given I have a media file of student work, when I start the file upload, then I can track the progress of my upload. And yeah, this scenario is pretty much ready to be designed and coded and referenced later.
And so Dan North will be very happy because he said that you should describe the behavior from the perspective of the stakeholders, and that's exactly what we've done here. We looked at the point of view of the teacher, and we said from their point of view, they're going to do the media file upload, and they're going to track the progress.
So the next step is to take this clearly defined behavior you have and use it to actually drive development. Depending on your process, you could take this and turn it into a set of tests that you can use in sort of a test-driven development style. As I said earlier, Sam's work with Solvio and their different tools for this have made it really easy for developers to do this stuff with Meteor.
Well, thank you, John. So we're going to show you how to do this now with Meteor, how you actually do BDD with Meteor. So in order to deploy an app to production, you need to first code and test it, if you're going to do some testing, and then you're going to build it, and then you need to deploy it. In this presentation, we're only going to show you the code and test part using Meteor. And also, the example we're going to use is actually from my book, the Meteor Testing Manual, which you can see there. And the example itself is about writing a book that you can sell. Crazy, right? So as an author, I want to curate a landing page so that I can entice people to purchase my book. So the scenario here is I want to write the header part of this landing page with Markdown. So given I have created a landing page with this Markdown, when a user navigates to the landing page, then they see the following elements. All right, so I hope you can see this. What I'm doing here is, first of all, this is quite a technical demo, so it requires a little bit of understanding about velocity. If you don't know much about Velocity and Cucumber, I advise very much that you go to velocity.meteor.com. I'm still going to go through step by step and explain everything, but I just wanted to give that little forewarning. So what you can see here is WebStorm, and at the bottom, I just have a console. And all I'm going to do is start Meteor. Now, letterpress is the example that's used in the book. And it's running Zolvia Cucumber. And here, Zolvia Cucumber tells me that I can tail the log of Cucumber over in another window here. So that's what I'll do. What you're looking at there is another Meteor application that's running in parallel to my app. So there's actually two Meteor applications running right now. One where my code runs, and the other one is where the features will be running against. So there it says there's zero scenarios and 0 steps. So I will just go back up here. Oops. And I will copy the exact same thing that we created. And I will paste it in here. And so I've taken the exact English and I've pasted it into Cucumber. And I'll save it. And it reruns, just like Meteor does with everything. But nothing happens, because it says to me I need to use the dev tag. Now what the dev tag does is, as soon as I put it somewhere, it starts rerunning this scenario every time I save a file. So it's allowing me to focus on one scenario at a time. Now what just happened is Cucumber told me very smartly that, great, you've ran this, but you haven't implemented these step definitions. So it says you can implement these step definitions with these snippets. So I'll grab them all. I'll just copy paste them. And I'll put them into the steps file. And here you can see, if I save this and rerun it, it's a slightly different problem. It says 5 skipped errors. Let's have a look and see what that looks like here in Velocity. I've got a little red dot up here that says things aren't working. So I click it, and it says these steps were skipped. That's because I'm using callback pending. So now I'm going to start automating these steps. So I have created a landing page with this markdown. Notice that this string is the markdown that's being passed through from here. So I have created a landing page with this markdown, passes this string into here. So I'll take this string, and I'll say this.server.call.
Yeah, so this .server is actually a DDP connection to the mirror where the tests are being run.
And remember, the mirror is a parallel application. So then we can say this.server.call, and then we say then, which is a promise, rather than having to use callbacks and nested callbacks. And we pass in the callback. And this now is going to call a method, a Meteor method, to do the page creation. So now this will be like, given I have created the page with this markdown, and it's passing the markdown, it would do it here. So then a user navigates to the landing page. Well, what you also get in Zolvia Cucumber is this.client, which is a WebDriver browser. So it's a Selenium browser. It's just like a user accessing the page. And in here, you can say process.env.url, .root URL. And then again, like before, you call callback. And so this is how you keep automating the steps. And Zolvia Cucumber makes it very easy by giving you two very important things: a connection to the mirror, so you can create pages, and also a connection to the browser where you can go and test the page. So rather than actually do this automation now, here's one that I made earlier. And so here it's actually doing the server call like I just did before, and it's doing a URL, and then it's waiting for things to exist, and everything in here has been automated. So I'm going to move this to the side, save the file, and Velocity will recognize that this has been changed. It will rerun. And now you can see that all the tests have passed. And so this is what we call reactive BDD. It's happening in real time, every time you save, just like everything else in Meteor. Let's see what happens when I go and change something to break the test. So this is how the app works. If I just put a typo in there and save, it will rerun, and the tests will inevitably fail. And that's how I know to go back and correct this and go, oh, something's gone wrong with my code. I can go and investigate, see what happened, fix it, and get the feedback. And once I've finished with this scenario, I know that this is working. Great, thank you very much. I'll take this dev tag, and I will move on to my next scenario, which would have come from the business. And this is how you can keep the momentum up, building scenario after scenario for all the things that have been defined collectively between the business and the technology. Tell you a couple more things. That what I can do in here in the console is, first I can run in development mode, but I can also say Velocity CI, and I can run this with --test on any CI server. So I can move this up to Circle CI or CodeShip or whatever you're using, run this command, and it will do the same tests on the CI server. And if you find it's a bit slow, and you've got maybe 1,000 tests, and they're all taking about 10 seconds each, that's a lot of time, then Meteor Cucumber has now got the ability to have parallel nodes, and it will start up many mirrors. So if I right now say Cucumber nodes 5, what it's actually going to do is start 5 separate mirrors for me, and they will all run in parallel. So it will divide the test time, the total execution time of all the tests, not by 5, but nearly 5.
Yeah, we have like hundreds and hundreds of tests at our company, so this is pretty great for us.
All right, and so that was the demo.
Yeah, so so I just want to sort of clarify a few things before we end the talk. Yeah, so why is BDD great for business people? One thing you'll notice as a business person is that you feel like you're less in the dark than you did before. Dealing with teams working on building the product, you're more concerned about how far along things are than whether things are being done right. And then, why is BDD good for developers? One thing, definitely less scope creep and less like scope creepy ideas, like kind of randomly making themselves into the sort of product roadmap and process. Less interruption when you're developing. More confidence, like you're not just going to work on something all night and then have someone like not be excited about it the next day. And more freedom to dig into things when you have a good amount of test coverage. So,
and finally, at Solvio, we're constantly making tools to improve the BDD process. So you saw the thing where you can run the tests really quickly now with parallel mirrors. We obviously wrote Meteor Cucumber, and we're in the process of building Simian.io, which takes these features out and gives you like a hackpad-style app that you can collaborate with business people and chat against the actual features. And then you can use these to put into GitHub, and then from there you can go and drive the development. So we're in the business of BDD, and if any of you want to do BDD, then you should get in touch with us. That's it.
Do you have any questions?
Where would be the best place to find maybe like a large test suite online other than the video book, like maybe more production, like for example?
yeah, so question.
So the question was, where can we find an example of a large suite of tests other than in the book? And the answer is that in Meteor, it's still quite new. And the place where I am making the fullest effort to actually do continuous deployment, including all the BDD stuff, is using letterpress. So it is the book, but finally now we're at a stage where we can focus on this stuff, because before it's been a moving part and a lot of things with velocity, learning along the way. Now it's really, really stable and it's super fast. So with these things in place, we're going to focus on getting the book out, and letterpress will be the place. You can also look in other places outside of Meteor for larger tests. Cucumber's been around for ages with the Ruby community, and there's already a bunch of projects out there. I can't name any, but there's a bunch that you can find. They'll be close enough in figuring out how to do scenarios, but not so much the coding level at Meteor level.
One of the things as a designer when you're working through a problem is you come across a number of different ways of potentially solving a problem. So if you're a teacher and you want to measure progress, you might have the media file, you might have the amount of time that they spend on the site where they abandon or what have you. So I guess the question is there a general kind of practice that you have around how many stories a scenario will consist of? Like how far down the different kind of possibilities you go before you determine that it's enough?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the scenarios all have to be relatable back to the original story. And as far as how many, it really depends. A lot of times you can't really figure everything out in one sitting, so things just evolve over time. So you kind of get to the point where rather than adding new scenarios, you're kind of going back and you're what happened with this scenario that we already wrote? We need to fix this. And that's kind of an easy way to keep people in the maintenance realm when you're evolving the product as development.
And the other thing is to always add personas at the top. So you say as a teacher. Now you can say as a teacher that is, or as a teacher, and you can really specialize the actors. And if you find that the feature's growing too big, it's a good chance to break it and break out into another feature.
Cool.
That's all right, go ahead.
How much reusable steps do you define? For instance, would it be reasonable to have a step where you do something when I click this element and you use a selector as the parameter?
Right.
In order to create a reusable step definition? Is that unreasonable?
Yeah, so the question was, how many reusable steps can you create where, like, we gave the example with Markdown, where you put in the custom Markdown, like, how far can you go with that as a developer with the tests to have reusable steps? And the answer is, I think in the beginning, when you're organizing things, you tend to do a lot of that, like as much as possible. We started with probably 12 like reusable steps just for like navigation or for like I am logged in or something like that, really, where you don't have to write the whole login step every time you write a new feature. But there's a testing pattern for writing reusable code that allows you to keep your scenarios in a business language while reusing code in the background, and that's called page objects. And there's also, I believe there's like a widget pattern that's very similar to that that's actually coming out for Meteor Cucumber.
That's right, yeah. So Meteor Cucumber uses something we created called Chimp, and we're creating Chimp widgets, which do exactly that. So then you can define a widget along with all the things that the widget can do, and then from your steps, you can just have very, very minimal code references, and that way you can keep the business language in the steps. One more question there. Mike.
No, one more.
Go ahead.
So, it seems like there's a little bit extra complexity here in parsing English to invoke the test. And it seems like something else that could go wrong or something. Does that happen, or how does that work?
You mean in the sense of like you have to keep relating your code to the natural language?
Yeah, exactly. So there's this parsing step, there's a connection. And
Right.
The regex or something doesn't really match or something,
Oh, sure.
et cetera.
Yeah, I think basically that's something you'll figure out as you're writing your tests, and that like things are failing and they're failing for no reason. You're going through and you're like, oh, I wrote that wrong. But aside from that, I think that's kind of where the Sam showed us how Cucumber gives you like the pre-written test examples, like when you're just getting started before you have actually any like code tests written. So that kind of takes care of that for you, like out of the box. In a sense, you can just copy that in, and then it has the things in the right place.
Cucumber's very good at it, basically.
Yeah.
It'll say to you, I don't see this step, where is it? And then you can try and match it up. That's one level. And then another level is that you might want to start, you might find that when you have 1,000 of these scenarios and steps, then you know, wait a minute, does that mean the same as the other one? And that's exactly why we're building Simian, to be able to help define things that are in the English language, but have the right tools around being able to refactor still the English language. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.